the proposed fee increases by the manager. At that time, there were still a number of questions, and I'm sure there still would be some questions and issues and items that remain after tonight relative to the FY07 budget. So the subcommittee continues to meet. We continue to look for information and bring us closer. That will bring us closer to putting together a balanced budget. So can the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Elliott?
Here.
Councilor Caulfield?
Here.
Councilor Armand Mercier?
Here.
3 present.
As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, we did hold a meeting to get a discussion on fees and to send that to a public hearing. That public hearing is tonight, and there was essentially the consensus of the motion from the Finance Subcommittee was just to bring the entire fee proposal to the full council, and those members that may have amendments, changes, can bring them forth at that time rather than bring them to the subcommittee, and some councils may agree, may not agree. So I don't believe there's anything further to discuss on that. That'll be held tonight at the public hearing at 7 p.m. On the other hand, there were still some other outstanding issues that we asked the manager to continue to work on. So with that, Mr. Manager, knowing that the budget or the budget scenario relies on fee increases, I know that there are some pieces of the puzzle that you can't discuss yet, knowing that that is one integral part of it. But aside of that fact, there are still some issues, some concerns from members of the council, including stabilization. I know there was a brief discussion on the Lenergia and communications from DOR. So why don't we go right to you for further discussion on these budget issues?
Well, if I could update you, there isn't a whole lot to report from the last time we met. I'd be happy to take any questions, but I think we've covered a number of the issues. I did communicate with the council last week, I believe it was, on the status of we got the audit back, which we've sent on to DOR. We have a meeting with the Department of Revenue this week, as well as with our auditor, to go over the audit and the balance sheets. The issue that I raised last week in the correspondence I had to the council was that, in fact, the problem of free cash, we had hoped to have at least $500,000 in free cash. In fact, it appears now that we could top off at a negative $2 million in free cash on our balance sheet once the Department of Revenue does all of their calculations. If you look at the audit statement, it shows that our fund balance is at a negative $300,000. But once the Department of Revenue makes their adjustments, they'll probably be in the $1 million to $1.5 million more than that. So it really speaks to the issue that we've been trying to get across to the public and to the council, that the budgeting practices that have taken place over the last number of years have really resulted in a very serious and severe drawdown of all of our available resources. We're at a point now where we really don't have much to go on. And it does create some budget issues for us in fiscal year 07, because we were counting or hoping to get that $500,000 in free cash that we'd be able to put towards the budget. So if anything, our problem has worsened by that amount. We do think we have a strategy to deal with that, utilizing billing off the indirect costs of the sewer operation to the sewer enterprise. That's something that really should be done on a regular basis, but we cannot see that has in fact been done in the past. Other than that, there were questions raised, I know, by councilors as to the impact on our bond rating of if our bond rating if we were to be downgraded again as a result of Moody's seeing that we really weren't making any progress in trying to deal with our structural deficit problem. By way of illustration, for every $1 million we borrow, if we were to drop another in the ratings, again, assuming that has an impact of about 0.25%, that means about $25,000 of additional costs for every $1 million that we borrow. So when we look at things like the CSO project of $65 million, or we look at the the other capital costs that we have with our school project, our water projects, the other issues that we have, it could very quickly get up into a substantial sum of money for the total cost to the taxpayers if our bond rating were to be, if we were to be downgraded once again. So I'd be happy to answer any specific questions councilors may have regarding the budget status. We did provide you with a list of the cuts in the various departments, with the 1% across the board cut in the discretionary budgets. We also have the other cuts that we've made in the health insurance budget as a result of the elimination of the health insurance for the boards and commissions, the reduction in the vocational school assessment. We've tried to detail all of that for the council.
So what is your time frame, Mr. Manager, to come in with, presuming things, depending upon what takes place tonight with the fee increase as part of the revenue strategy, revenue raising side of the books, what is your time frame to bring in any additional cuts or adjustments to the budget, and when do we expect to set the tax rate?
We'd be looking for council action on December 12th on all of these budget matters. So and that would, I know that last year the council, of course, had a very difficult period of having to meet 3 times, I believe the last week of December, to get everything resolved. Our plan is to have everything resolved on December 12th, where we would then have the necessary votes to amend the budget, transfer the necessary funds from special revenue accounts or enterprise accounts into the general fund, and at that time take the vote on the budget, and then be able to move forward with the completion of the recap sheet that would be submitted to the state.
I know my colleagues have questions, but I just wanted to go back to that audit. Does the Department of Revenue have the audit? That was one of the requirements that they have. And we're so between the audit and the recap sheet, we're still working on.
They have the audit that was sent to them as soon as we got it. We told them we'd get it to them by the middle of November, which we did. We sent that down to them. They have the Schedule A that in the recap. They don't actually have a draft recap. They don't have a recap sheet yet. I believe they may have a draft. But they also have the work that Mr. Fernandez did before he left with an estimate of free cash. That's where there were problems. We have our interim auditor now working on that, and he'll be meeting with the Department of Revenue as well.
Council Marcia?
Yeah, I know there's just a limited questioning on the fees because of the public hearing, but I have one question. There's a total of $1.6 million if these fees get increased. How did we arrive at that number? Is that estimated on what the fees will be sought in next year?
That's estimated based on the amount of fees that we levy currently, multiplied by any change. So,
Okay.
for example, if we had a permit that cost $10, and we issued 100 of them a year, there would be $1,000 in revenue. And if we increased that permit to $11, that would give you an extra $100.
We're using the estimate of 1,000 permits being issued.
Right. We're assuming that the volume of permits issued and the volume of services rendered remains the same.
Let's go hypothetically and say that there'll be more permits issued, more fees than was done last year. That's more revenue. What happens to that more revenue?
That would be true if that happens actually, but we could say that till we were blue in the face, and the Department of Revenue would not approve that. They will approve revenue increases on fee increases only. They will not approve assumptions that you will do more business.
But they are approving assumptions of what business we did.
Yes.
Okay. But I guess my question is, forget the Department of Revenue. I'm kind of sick of hearing about them anyway. Assuming that there are more revenues, what happens? How does that work itself up?
That, if there are in fact more revenues,
Right.
If in fact there are more building permits pulled, let's say, during this fiscal year, those funds would be sitting in the general fund, and at the completion of this fiscal year, they would be calculated and figured into our free cash.
Okay, I guess that's what I wanted to find out. And that's it for that because of our public hearing. You indicated that for every $1 million, first of all, has our bond rating changed?
No, it
Is
went
it the
down,
same?
it went down in March.
Right.
Or April. It did not, we were able to hold on to our rating
Okay.
in September by laying out the actions that the philosophical actions we were going to be taking with regards to the FY07 budget. You know, the only hazard we have right now is that the financial condition that was described to Moody's by the auditor and the CFO back in September did not become reality. We did not have any free cash, and they had estimated some number in free cash, and we did not end the year with revenues that they said we were going to end the
So
year
when we talk about $25,000 per million, if the bond rating,
on an annual basis.
right, that's only on future bonds. It has nothing to do with past.
Exactly.
Okay, so the past bonds are cemented in.
Right.
On 12/12, you mentioned about amending the budget.
Yes.
Now, does that mean that we are going to rescind a previous budget? How do we get to amend the budget when the only thing the council can do is cut and not add? How does?
That's basic. Well,
So
that's
you're going to
basically.
bring in a budget
We're going to bring in a
that we
series
can't
of budget.
change
We're going to
except-
bring in a series of budget amendments.
Amendments,
to
okay.
reduce various line
Okay.
items.
Okay.
I don't believe there are any that are going up.
There may be some utility accounts that are going.
Utility accounts that are going
But
up.
the council, by virtue of its statute, would be able to do further amendments, cutting, but not increasing. If, for instance, you come in with a budget cut of X number of dollars for the DPW,
I'll
All right.
refer that to the solicitor.
I know we can't increase, but we can cut.
Right. In this
No, I
particular
listen.
case, if the manager is bringing before you
Mm-hmm.
a request that a particular line item be increased,
Yep.
that obviously can be approved.
But just that line item. We can't
Just
go
that line
back,
item.
we can't
That's
go back
correct.
on other line items that you haven't
Right.
amended.
That's correct.
Okay. What is right now before the DOR? What have they got, and what are we waiting for from them, if anything, and what more do we have to send them so we can get them to get out of the business of running the city?
Well,
With all due respect to,
I'm going to let the CFO answer that, but I wouldn't say that they're running the city any more than they are looking at 349 other communities. The only community they're in fact running is the city of Springfield. But they do.
it was a tongue-in-cheek.
They do, I know, but they do, I think it's important to point out that they do have to approve all of our calculations with regards to our finances.
Okay.
Before we can send out tax bills.
Okay, so what is before them now?
Okay. The former city auditor submitted a balance sheet for the certification of free cash.
Okay,
They've reviewed that and rejected it as incomplete. The acting city auditor is preparing a new balance sheet. He's got a draft today, as a matter of fact, and it will likely be given to them on Thursday when we meet with them. They also have the Schedule A, which is a recap of last year's activity. That doesn't appear to have any problems with it.
okay.
They still need from us the tax recapitulation sheet. That's where the Department of Revenue blesses our tax rate. We can't collect any taxes without the DOR
Right.
approving the tax rate. That can't be done until, number one, we're sure that the budget is in balance, so we need to make any amendments to the budget, because right now we know we're out of balance. And we expect to complete that December 12th. So hopefully December 13th, we'll be able to input the data from the votes taken and submit it to the Department of Revenue. At this point, they're estimating somewhere around 1 week to approve a tax rate. And then we have 1 week for us to get the files to the printer to actually print out and mail out the tax bills.
Now, would they be approving the tax rate that we set?
Yes.
Okay, so on December 12th, we'd be setting a tax rate based on the information we have,
Well,
subject to their approval?
Right. You almost back into a tax rate. You set the level of expenditures that you plan. Then you back out any other revenue, local receipts, state aid. What you're left with is a gap. That amount goes on the tax recap as your tax levy.
The assessors are all, their assessments are all completed?
Correct.
Yes.
Did that have to be sent to DOR for their approval?
That was sent to DOR and that was
have they
approved.
approved it?
Yes.
Yes.
All the
So-
assessments are approved.
So the assessments have been approved, so anyone who wants to know what the new assessments are needs to go on a webpage or come and see the assessor's office, and that's been approved. That's,
Yeah, I don't know if they have them available for the public yet, but I know it's approved.
They do.
okay.
Counselor, could I just add
Sure.
something to the, so that everyone understands what the approval of the tax rate really means, or the tax recap really means? The tax recap form basically lays out how much money the city plans to spend in the upcoming year, in this current year.
And
So
where it comes from.
that is the budget. That is, in many ways, it's a simplified version of our budget. It spells out that we plan to spend $295 million. And then it details out how we're going to fund that. And as Tom was saying, you say that we're going to get this much from state aid. Well, that's easy enough for the Department of Revenue to check because they know how much we're going to get. So they check that off. Then they know, then they say, okay, local receipts. And that, of course, ties to the fee increases in the sort. And they say, well, how much did you collect last year? $40,250,000. And how much do you think you're going to collect this year? And we give them a number. They then have to look at that. Typically, they use what has been collected the year before. In our case, we're going to say we're going to collect more than that because we're collecting, we're raising the fees. You have to prove to them how that all works. They don't just automatically approve those numbers. What's left, as Tom said, is the bottom to be raised through taxation. And that's a simple process of calculating out how much the total assessments are and calculating out how much is left, and that gives you how much the tax rate actually is.
In the interest of time, I know there's, do you have any other questions, Councilor Mercer?
I only have two more, I mean, actually.
Okay. Well, we have a lot of members here
All right,
and
go
and
ahead.
others,
I'm all
a
set
number
for
of
now.
subcommittees, that's all.
And some of these can wait till 12.
Well, I was going to say, the full discussion and deliberation on all of these issues will be on December 12th, and we'll have that a lot of the information beforehand. So, Councilor Caulfield? Councilor Caulfield?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Manager, no matter who sits in that corner office, it is not an easy job. And I've served with Jimmy Campbell, Richard Johnson, Brian Martin, John Clarkson, and now I'm serving with you. And over the years, the council and the past managers have worked collectively together to keep a tax increase to a minimum, and free cash was a way of life. There's no getting around it. Council voted to use free cash to subsidize, prevent any large tax increases. In the year 2000 or 2001, I think the city received its highest bond rating in the history of the city. And that was because of good financing and good financial controls in the manager's office. I grant you the bond rating did go down. And last year, we did have a problem with, putting all our paperwork together with DOR and so forth. But the councils that I have served with and the managers, at least I'm proud of the fact we've kept the taxes below a tax levy. We're not like other communities in the state. And if you read the Globe or the Lowell Sun, you will see many communities are facing the same dilemma we are. They're in a dilemma. And how do we get out of that dilemma? That's, I think, how we have to work together to address that. This is not a question, it's just a statement, but I know we have $4 million in the advisory board account, and there'll be $1.4 million from the Lena G account in the general fund, and I suppose we look at it in different views, but I'm looking at this $5.4 million in the reserve account for next year. But it's time we all have to work together, roll up our sleeves, and address the issue before us. But managers of the past and councils of the past have done everything humanly possible to keep the taxes to a minimum, keep the increase to a minimum in the city. And that was the logic, how we addressed increases in taxes. We worked at it pretty hard. Free cash was an arm of leverage. It was a tool we used. And Jimmy Kennedy warned us many, many times, this free cash someday is going to run out. And that's what happened. It did. Had we not used the free cash, if we didn't use that formula, this city would be up to the tax levy that other communities are in right now. So that's just a statement I want to present, and just a comment.
Thank you. Any other members of the council? Councilman Malinazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the manager, just so I understand what you said regarding free cash. You stated a negative $2 million in free cash as we sit here this evening?
It could reach a negative $2 million.
So that's a swing of $5.5 million since the beginning of the budget process?
Council, well, there was never $3.5 million there.
Oh, but from the standpoint of the planning and what we had approved, what we thought we had approved?
Yes.
A swing of $5.5 million?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other members of the council? Any other questions? I suppose one question that, we will address in the future is, it doesn't seem, in reality, it's week or every other week, we're not getting good news as we continue to go through these numbers. And people do ask me on the street, well, how did it get to this point? The council can only, and this isn't about pointing fingers, it's about understanding how we got to this point. It seems not overnight. But the council's role is to ask questions, and we have filed motions after motions to get the answers. I explain to people, and we all run on fiscal accountability. I run as a fiscal watchdog. And I did file motions after motions to get information, and we didn't get it. It was a different philosophy, and that does have to change, and something that we will need to work to in the future. This didn't happen overnight. We did get the letters from DOR. Council Mercy wants the DOR to go away. I think we all do. I didn't think we knew that DOR was as close as they were. We certainly didn't get the letters up to a certain point. But people at home need to know that, we stayed on top of it. We can only go on the numbers that were given to us. And, we can call it what you will. Somebody wasn't watching the numbers closely enough, and we certainly didn't receive them. I know I went back to the motions that I filed, and it was only on almost a monthly basis. This finance subcommittee met regularly. So people at home need to know we are trying to fix it, and it won't. It can happen again. I mean, we have to be able to get the numbers, quarterly reports. Motions were filed for the auditor and the manager and the CFO, because the council does need to be kept abreast, and it's just another check in the system of checks and balances, keeping the manager accountable, the auditor, and that's the way it works. So I did just want to say that, because I am stopped on the street regularly asking, the council wasn't asleep, but quite frankly, we just didn't get the information. We can't take action. We can only adopt and approve things based upon the assumptions that are presented to us. So that's a statement that I wanted to make, and it's a new way of doing things, and we need to do it, and not let this happen again. We've read back to 93. I wasn't here in 93, but things change, and they have to change again. Or DOR, they're in here. They're coming in for a financial management review, and they want to keep a close eye on the finances as the council does. But we need to be able to get that information. So with that, I know there's
Okay.
we have Council Mercier and then the manager, and I know there's a subcommittee meeting. I'm sure there'll be a full discussion, but I thought it was important to let the people know that, you know, we did our job. Council Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm just expressing my concern here, and my concern is with the levy limit. And I really am leery of getting that close to the levy limit, whereby we have a major happening, and we have to account for, you know, an expenditure. And I certainly don't want to propose an override in the city of Lowell. I certainly would not want to do that. So I like to keep a cushion of quite a ways from that levy limit ceiling, and that's my concern.
Well, Counselor, I agree with you completely on
Manager.
that. I don't advocate an override at all. I don't think I've ever advocated an override in my life. I think we live within, I think you said it most succinctly recently, that we live within our means. We do have some excess capacity there that we can use to solve this problem, but what we also have to be careful of is you know, the idea of somehow drawing down every little bit of reserve, you know, makes it impossible for us to deal with any emergencies that may arise, and is very bad financial practice. So I agree with you completely, and we're not going up to the levy limit
And
by
we're,
the
and we're
proposal.
talking about 65 million as related to the sewer separation.
CSO, right?
And I'm troubled by the fact that we have to bond that money to spend 65 million to, if we started from start to finish separating the sewer system and it was complete, that would be like $310 million, which in fact with today's cost of living increase, it'll probably be well up into 400 million. So we're doing a little at a time, and it's a consent decree. It's an unfunded mandate, and I want to know, out of the 65 million, how much is the federal government actually giving us for this?
Nothing.
Nothing, see?
The only thing
This
that
is-
we're eligible for 2% from the SRF.
This is unfair. I
Right.
mean, it's an unfunded mandate that should never
Yep.
be brought to the taxpayers and burdening. These are things we have to do. We're mandated to do it, and there's no money
Right.
available.
Well, that won't come out of the general fund, that's out of the sewer
Well,
enterprise.
it's still money
People
that-
still have to pay for it, I don't disagree, but Council Milonazo has to go to another meeting, so did you have anything else, Council Milonazo? No, you all set? And then, is your meeting in here, Councilor Milonazo, in front of the television? No, it's in the mayor's, okay. Mayor, and then Council Donahue also has to go to that meeting, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I have a couple of questions to follow up on what Councilor Caulfield was talking about, and I'd like the manager to answer if he could. One relates to this idea of the reserve account that I think we're required by law to maintain at $1.5 million or whatever it is, and then that account has some extra money in there. So I know there's the one amount we're supposed to be keeping by law, but I'd also like to know what the Department of Revenue or the financial markets, Moody's and things, think is good practice, whether it's above and beyond that amount. So if you have that information, Mr. Manager.
Yes, Council, in the Oversight Board account, there's supposed to be $2.5 million. We have close to $4 million, I think roughly $4 million in there. The financial community would like to see a community have about 5% of its operating budget on reserve. So in our case, that would be roughly $14.5 to $15 million that we should have in reserve. They prefer obviously to have more than that, closer to 10%. And many communities look to have something along those lines.
But I don't think we've ever had it at that level.
Actually, we did.
We did?
We did. Back in 2000, going into 2001, Councilor Mercier earlier had spoken of what happened. I think it was Councilor Mercier talked about 1993. It was very much, without being directly critical of the practices that were followed at that time, it was many of the problems, the same problems that we're seeing now occurred then in terms of overestimating revenues that didn't actually come through, spending down of any available monies, that put the city into the situation where the oversight board had to be established. It was really the practices that were followed coming out of that after the oversight board was here from like 95 to 2000, in which real progress was made to get those reserves up, and that was what really prompted the upgrade that happened at the time in 2001 of the bond rating.
Okay, I mean, I think, these sometimes are referred to as rainy day accounts, and, in 2003, I think, when Governor Romney came in, I think the city lost over $10 million in local aid, 3/4 of the way through a fiscal year, and I know that was probably the year we applied most of that free cash, over $15 million, I think. So, to some extent, I agree with Councilor Caulfield. We didn't want to have a dramatic tax increase. You have these rainy day funds for a reason, and it was certainly raining in 2003. So I make no apologies like you do for doing our best to keep the tax level down. That said, however, it can't go on forever, and I think we're in a situation where we need to rebuild those reserves in case an event like that were to happen again. The other question I had is related to this collection from Lenergia, and could you walk us through that, what that your thinking is on that source?
Sure. During the over the last 4 years, the pilot payment, the payment in lieu of taxes agreement that we had with Lenergia was not fulfilled. They didn't make payment on that. That's about $500,000 a year. If they had made payment on that, our free cash each one of those years would have been a little bit more. But this year, when the property was transferred, they had to make the payment in order to have the municipal lien removed. And so that money came in. There's really two issues at play here. One is philosophical, and I did want to point out, but I'll save that in terms of philosophy that Councilor Elliott mentioned. But with regards to Lenergia, there's the philosophical that you don't, $500,000 of that $1.9 million that we received came in for fiscal year 2007. So we can count that as a revenue in fiscal year 2007, the year that we're in. The other $1.4 million is really one-time monies that's there. It's not recurring. That will become part of our free cash at the end of this fiscal year, assuming that we, in fact, hit all of our other revenue targets. So philosophically, it's good practice to only count upon that which is recurring to fund recurring budget items. The other issue is one, and I know there was an article in the newspaper with the quotes from the Department of Revenue. The spokesperson said that they frown upon trying to use that type of money. We could ask, but they discourage it, something to that effect. We, in fact, that was the spokesperson. Every community has their own DOR representatives. We've already had discussions with our DOR representative on the use of that money, and they, in fact, even challenged us on the use of the $500,000. So they will not support our using any more than that which we would be receiving in this fiscal year.
Okay, Council.
The communications that they've had
Thank
with us.
I'm sorry, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. I just want to go back and ask a couple of questions. The effect of the free cash being much worse than what we had first thought. In other words, if it's $2 million, up to $2 million more in the red, then we're $5.5 million in the red on the free cash number, or is that? I know that's fuzzy math. I'm just trying to get a handle on how bad is the news.
No, $2 million in a deficit is really just $2 million in a deficit.
Okay, so the $3.5 million is all we were looking for.
It's important to remember that a free cash deficit is not a budgetary deficit. It's like negative net worth. It's as if you mortgage your house for more than it's worth. As long as you're not selling the house, it doesn't matter, and you have time to build equity again in it.
So let's go to, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but, we're going to be looking at trying to fill the gap, so to speak, and one of the things that we're going to talk about later tonight at the council meeting has to do with raising fees, and another option is, raising taxes and coming up with a combination of that. How much of a gap are we filling? In other words, what you're saying is this worst picture of free cash isn't going to affect the gap for this current budget.
Only by half. The council passed a budget in June, assuming that there would be $3.5 million of free cash sitting there
Right.
that we could draw upon
Which
to
is
fund operations.
which is not there.
It's not there.
Okay.
So that's a $3.5 million gap that we have to fill, either through cuts, fees, or taxes.
Okay. And the figures we had been given before, let's just deal with the 3.5 million, were that, about 34 positions in the city budget would have to be eliminated if we didn't raise either fees or taxes, or somehow come up with revenue, right? Is that?
Yeah, that was making some general assumptions.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
12 police officers
Right,
per
right.
million, 8 firefighters, so
Yep.
let's just extrapolate that out. So if it's 3.5 million, so it's somewhere around, upward, in the vicinity of 40 police officers would have to be laid
Correct.
off, and maybe 30 firefighters, and so, and the list goes on per department.
Correct.
Right, okay. So we're still dealing with that gap. Now, we still haven't even gotten to, where we'll be because of the deficit, right?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, one of the concerns I have, obviously, if there was a fund we could go to, we'd all want to go there. We've done it before, but, this is very much like, I wasn't here in '93, but I remember, as I recall, and I could be not recalling it exactly, but we were almost $13 million in the red. This isn't that far off, and the fact is the city had to go out and bond money to fund the deficit. I mean, maybe that's not good accounting terms, but that's basically what you had to do. You had to go out and borrow money to pay your bills.
That's exactly what happened.
And that's why we got a control board in place. And I bet you, if we looked at the budget in 1993, 1994, it was a whole lot smaller than it is today. And a lot of it having to do with ed reform monies that have come into the city in those years. So, when they told us to keep $2.5 million in a reserve account, I mean, I'd be curious, and if you can find that for me, I'd like to know what was the annual budget. I think it was much, much smaller than what it is today. And so, when we're talking about, I mean, going and trying to take $1 million or $1.5 million out of there, first of all, it doesn't solve our problem. Secondly, it seems to me were the state to go back and say, you people are in financial poor health, I bet you they would up that reserve account significantly, that they would mandate us to have. So, we may not want to rock the boat any more than we've already done down there, it seems, by being put on the watch list. And if you've discussed the Lenergia issue and there is a mandate of keeping $2.5 million in the reserve account, we just can't go there. We're going to have to find the money somewhere else or make cuts. I mean, I think we've all studied this, 6 ways to Sunday, trying to come up with some solution. I'll reserve my comments about the public hearing later on tonight, but, it's a problem that has to be solved. It's as simple as that.
Correct.
Okay, well, I know there are other subcommittees that people have to attend. This will continue tonight and into December 12th, when we do go to take a number of votes on the final budget. So thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Moses. Move to adjourn by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Caulfield. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.